Thank you everyone for joining us today. We are at the top of the hour, so let's get started with today's webinar. Today we're going to be going over how to get started in FCS Express 7. This webinar will be recorded and you'll get an email with the link to the recording. At any time during the webinar, feel free to enter any questions that you have in the GoToWebinar panel on the right. I will try to answer them as they come in, and I also have my colleague Greg on the line who is going to help with answering those questions. I'm Catherine Rittenbach, and I'm a technical applications specialist with Denovo Software, and I'm excited to introduce you to FCS Express 7. Let's go over today's agenda. In part 1, we'll go over how to add basic elements to our layout, including plots, data, and gates. In part 2, we'll go over some advanced analysis tools, including overlays, statistics, spreadsheets, and charts. In part 3, we'll go over how to run a batch process to export to PowerPoint or Excel. In part 4, I'll show you how you can reuse your layout as a template. And finally, in part 5, I'll show you some support and resources that we have available for everyone. So let's get started with using FCS Express. First, I'd like to show you our startup screen. And this is the window that will appear when you launch FCS Express. And there are a lot of different resources here available for you that I'll go over at the end. But the two most used buttons here are the New Layout button and the Open Layout button. And what I have done is I've pressed New Layout in order to create a new layout from scratch. So this is my new layout. And this is FCS Express. You can see that it looks like PowerPoint. We have a Microsoft Office-like interface to make the software easy to use. You can navigate through the tools in this tab and ribbon system at the top. We have tabs like the Home button that have prefabricated page designs where you can edit text, arrange objects on the page. We have the Insert tab to insert objects. We have a Design tab to adjust the page setup, the Gating tab to insert and manage gates, the Batch tab to set up and run batch exports, the Text tab to edit text and manage tables, the Data tab to refresh data, export transformed or truncated data files, and control the data file being displayed, the Tools tab to manage compensation and unmixing and apply transformations to the data. We have a Quality tab to set up custom SOPs, and we have the View tab to access the navigator windows and choose how the pages are displayed. And if you'd like to reference some resources, you can find them in the Help tab. In the File tab, you can do things like save and open layouts and create a new layout. You can also access the user options. These options allow you to customize the behavior of FCS Express to meet your needs. At the top, we have undo and redo buttons that can be set to work for up to 100 actions. You can use these on virtually any action. At the bottom, we can create multiple pages of the layout, and we can also right-click in order to format them. We can also zoom in or out of our page. So let's get started with our analysis. I'm going to get started by going to my Insert tab and choosing a color dot plot. So I'll click on that option and then click on the blank space of my layout. And this allows me to go and find my data files, and I can actually select which data file I would like to display on that plot. I do want to note here, we do have a drop-down menu here. The default here will be to select FCS files. However, we do accept multiple data file types, not just FCS files. So you can feel free to explore this later. And we also allow you to merge FCS files if you need to merge or concatenate those files at any time. So now I'm just going to select sample 1 here and choose Open File. And now this is an object on our layout, so we can resize it, we can reshape it, we can move it around, and this layout is customizable. We can change these axes if we'd like, so I'm going to change the x-axis to forward scatter and the y-axis to side scatter. We can copy this plot, so if we right-click on the plot, we can copy and we can paste it elsewhere on our layout. We can also duplicate. So if we right-click on that plot, we'll do the same thing by pressing the duplicate button. And now we have several copies of our plot. We can also drag around multiple plots to select multiple. We can hold down our individual control button and individually select multiple plots or objects. We can also do Control A in order to select everything on that page. So if we do want to select everything here, and we can go to our Home tab, and I want to show you that there's an Arrange and Align button here. So I'm going to go to use the Align tool, and I'm going to align the middle. And now all of them are aligned in terms of the middle position, and we can also distribute these horizontally to give them equal spacing between them. Now, we can also change a plot type in FCS Express. So let's go to the Format tab, and we have this option over here called Change Plot Type. So we have previously inserted a color dot plot, but perhaps we want to change this to a density plot. We can do this in this way. So let's go in and change our axes here for our analysis. I'm going to change this axis to CD45 and this axis to side scatter. I'll change this axis to CD4 and this axis to CD8. And you'll also notice we have a search bar at the top. So if we want to start typing in our parameter name, this will be especially useful to find the parameter you're looking for, especially if you have a really long list of parameters. And this one we can type in CD16 to find the parameter we're looking for here. I'm going to right-click here and choose Format. And what this does is it opens a formatting menu on the side. Now this formatting menu is a dockable window. We have many dockable windows in FCS Express, and what this means is you can drag it out. It becomes a window that you can move around. And what you'll notice is there are arrows that appear when you try to move a dockable window, and that allows you to dock it to the left, to the bottom, or to the right of the screen. So I'm going to keep this docked so that is still visible and accessible but out of the way. And you also have the opportunity to pin or unpin your dockable windows. So here it's called auto hiding. So if we click this pin, then it will be pinned to the side so that it really is out of the way, but then we can hover over that tab to make it appear. I'll keep this unpinned for now. Now, any changes that you make to your formatting menu are going to immediately affect your layout. And every object in your layout can be formatted. That's plots, statistics tables, text boxes, and spreadsheets. Depending on what you clicked on, you'll have different options in the menu. And those options are going to be listed here. We call those categories. So let's highlight all of our plots, and we can actually format multiple objects at once, multiple plots at once. So I'm going to go to the title category. And instead of having this long title that includes our sample name and our gate, I'm going to delete that. So now we have no title here, but we can insert what we call a token here. We can insert just the current gate here, for example. And now in our title, we're only going to be showing the current gate. Now I'm going to use my undo button to go back to the way that the title was before because I do like seeing both the file name and the gate. All right, now our data list over here is already open and already docked to the left, and all of our files have been loaded in. Even though we only selected sample 1 before, all of these files are in our data list because FCS Express is expecting that you would want to analyze all of those files in the same folder in a similar way and at the same time. So we can actually manipulate this data list if we'd like. We can click this plus button here to add in new data files. We can use the delete button to delete some of the files. So let's say we wanted to delete samples 2 through 8. We can highlight those by holding down my shift key or holding down my control key and selecting those samples in the data list. We can use this delete button to remove them. And then maybe we want to load in some more files into our data list. So there are several different ways that we can load in data files into our data list, but one way is by dragging and dropping. So perhaps we want to drag and drop in our samples 2, 3, and 4. We can highlight them in our Finder window or in our File Explorer window, and we can actually drag and drop them right into our data list. We also can use this plus button here to add in the remaining files if we'd like. So I'm going to then highlight these remaining files and press open file, and they get added right back into our data list. We also have a wrench button here for formatting this data list. We can add a keyword, so I'm going to press the add button here, and I'm going to add in a keyword called SMNO. You can, of course, choose any keyword that's available to you. This is, in my case, the specimen or tube label. I'll press OK, and I'll press OK again. And I'm just going to expand this so we reveal our new column. So a new column has been added, which includes that keyword. And you can notice that we have a different keyword value for each of our data files. And this gives me a little bit more information about each data file. So the data list and the gate navigator, which appear automatically by default in your new layouts, they are also dockable windows, just like your formatting menu. So of course you can pull them out and move them around and dock them to different sides of your screen. And you'll also notice that you can dock multiple windows on the same side of the screen. Now the data list is like the workspace in Flojo. We can use the data list to keep track of which sample or samples are being displayed on your layout. We can change the data file being displayed in several ways. We can double click on another sample. So let's double click on sample number 2. Then we can choose the default, which is change the base overlay on all objects to the selected file, but you also can customize this to a different option if you'd like. I'll press OK, and we'll notice that all of my plots now are showing sample 2 instead of sample 1. We can also drag a data file from the data list onto a plot. So let's say we want to now show sample 3 on each of these plots. We can drag and drop sample 3 onto each of the plots right from the data list. And now we're showing sample 3 on every plot. Another way to change the data file is in the Data tab. You have these Next and Previous buttons, and this will allow you to change the data on all objects to the next one in the data list or the previous one in the data list. And this is similar to using the left and right arrows in Flojo plots to flip through your data files. The cyan highlighting shows our file that's currently being displayed. We can also, to change the data file, we can select a different iteration number. So let's say we wanted to display sample number 2 here. We can click on iteration number 2. So let's click on that blue button, and you'll notice that we've flipped to show sample 2 on all of our plots. And this function up here under the Data tab does the same thing. You can choose from the drop-down menu which iteration you would like to display. Now I showed you before that you can add a plot from the Insert tab, but another way to add a plot to the layout is by dragging and dropping a file from the data list onto the layout. So let's drag and drop sample 1 onto the layout. And we have the options here to choose one or multiple of many object types. I'm going to choose just a histogram now and press OK. And I will change this x-axis to CD3. Now another object that I like to have open while I'm doing my analysis is the gate view. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab and choose Gate View. And then I can click anywhere on my layout in order to add this. This is an object on our layout. It can be moved around, of course. Now this is going to show us our gating hierarchy. Our gating hierarchy also will appear in our gate navigator. But I don't have any gates yet, so nothing is showing up there. We're just seeing no gate, which translates to all events in FCS Express. We also have some white space and gray space in FCS Express. Now, all of the space is usable. You can add objects to the white space and the gray space. What this means is when you do an export to PowerPoint, everything that's on the white space will stay on the white space, everything on the gray space will stay on the gray space. If you export to PDF, then only the objects on the white space will be exported to the PDF. Let's start drawing some gates. So I'm going to go to the gating tab and I will choose the shape first that I want to add. I'll choose the ellipse. And I'm going to draw the ellipse around my lymphocytes population here. So I just simply click and drag in order to create that, that ellipse. And I can release that mouse and I'm prompted to give this gate a name. So I'm going to call it lymphs. I can also change the color here. I'll change that to blue. We have some additional gating properties down here. For example, you could choose to exclude the events inside of this shape if you prefer. I'm going to press OK. Now, we also have these other gate types. So let's say I don't like the shape of the gate that I drew and I instead want to replace it with a polygon. Well, you can do this at any time in FCS Express. So I'm going to show you how we can replace this gate. I'm going to simply choose the new shape that I want to draw and I will draw that new gate shape. So for a polygon, you can click in order to add nodes and double click in order to close it, or click on the first node in order to close it. And when you close it, then you are prompted to give it a name. But we also have this option now that we have an existing gate to replace an existing gate. And you'll have all of those gate options available to you that you've previously created. In this case, we only have the lymphs option. So I do want to replace that lymphs gate and I'll press OK. And now you've just replaced that ellipse with a polygon. Now, if you want to drill down on a gate, you can drag and drop it onto the layout. So we can drill down on this lymphs gate. We're going to drag and drop that out onto the blank space of the layout. And what this does is it creates an identical plot, and it's just showing the cells within that gate that we dragged. Then you can go on and change the axes as you want and continue your gating strategy. But in this case, I've already prepared my plots, so I'm going to delete this extra plot. Now let's go over how we can apply a gate to an existing plot. There's a few ways to do this. One way is by dragging a gate onto another plot. So let's drag this lymphs gate onto the second plot. And now you'll notice that the lymphs gate is applied here. Another way is to select a plot or multiple plots. So I'll select this plot and we can go under the gating tab to see this current gate option. You have a drop-down menu here. You can select which gate you want to be the current gate on that plot. So I'll choose the lymphs in this case. And now you'll see that the lymphs gate is being applied here. And then what you'll notice is that when we move around our gate, then all of those downstream plots and all the downstream statistics are going to update automatically in real time. There is a third way that we can change the current gate on a plot. We'll click on that gate, and in the formatting menu, we can go to the overlays category. Now you can make multiple overlays, which I'll show you later, but in this case, we only have one overlay at the moment. So for this overlay, we can then go to the gate option and we can choose any gate that is currently existing. So when I choose lymphs, then you'll notice that the lymphs gate is currently being displayed on the histogram. All right, so let's draw some more gates. I'm going to, under the gating tab, choose the rectangle gate, and I'll draw a rectangle gate around my CD4 positive population, just clicking and dragging, give this a name, and I'll make another rectangle around the CD8 positive population. In this case, I'm just going to leave this as gate 1. And now we have some more gates that we have built up in our hierarchy. So let's expand our hierarchy. We can expand our hierarchy in both our gate view and our gate navigator. And so what do we have here? We have the lymphocytes, and then we have two child gates, the CD4 positive and gate 1. And so you can see that the hierarchy has built up. Now, maybe we want to add a quadrant. So on this plot, I want to add a quadrant. I'm going to go to the gating tab, and I can choose quadrant. And when I click that, I can click on my plot in order to add it. We can, of course, move around the center vertex of this quadrant, and those percentages in the corner will update automatically. Now, quadrants are not gates by default, but they can be converted to gates. So in this case, let's right-click on this plot and go to Convert Quads to Gates, and we want to convert the lower right quad. And in this case, I'd like to call this my CD19 positive population, and we'll press OK. And then you'll notice that that gate can show up in our gating hierarchy. Now on a histogram, a marker is drawn instead of a gate. So under the gating tab, let's choose a marker, and we can draw that marker around our CD3 positive population. Of course, we can move around a marker, that percentage will update. We can also convert a marker to a gate. So we can right-click on that histogram, and we can choose Convert Marker to Gate, and we'll choose the marker on the plot that we want to convert. In this case, I'm going to call this CD3 positive. We can, of course, change that color if we'd like. Excellent. So we can use the gate view or the gate navigator to edit gates and manipulate the hierarchy. I'm going to double click on gate 1 here because I want to edit it, and I want to rename it CD8 positive. So I'm able to do that here. We can, of course, change the color. We can also rearrange the hierarchy. So this is not static. This is not just a picture. We can actually manipulate the hierarchy here. So for example, if we want to make the CD4 and CD8 positive gates children of the CD3 positive gate, we can simply drag and drop them onto the new parent gate. So I've highlighted both the CD4 and CD8 here by using my Shift key, and we can click and drag them right on top of the CD3 positive gate. And now we've rearranged that hierarchy. And now that that CD3 marker has been converted to a gate, we can actually drag and drop the CD3 gate onto this CD4 versus CD8 plot so that it makes more sense. Instead of just showing our lymphocytes gate, we want to show our CD3 positive population on here. We can also right-click in our gate view or in our gate navigator, and we can add a combination gate. Now here we would need to enter a formula that includes and, or, not, or XOR. So I'll show you an example. In this case, I would like to make a CD3 negative gate. And this gate will be the lymphs that are outside of the CD3 positive gate. And what do we enter for our formula? We can enter not, and we can enter our existing gate name, not CD3 positive. And we can press OK. And now this CD3 negative gate has been created in our hierarchy. Now let's drag and drop this gate onto the lymphs in order to arrange it properly. And we can now apply this gate to a plot. All right, so let's check out our agenda. We've gone over part 1, and now we're going to go into part 2, which is advanced analysis tools. Now, overlays can be added to histograms and most other 2D plots. So let's add overlays to a histogram. I'm going to copy and paste this plot onto a new page. So I'm going to copy, and I'll make a new page down here and paste it here. I'll make it pretty big so that we can see it. And one way to add an overlay is by dragging and dropping a data file onto a plot. So I'm going to drag and drop sample 6 onto the histogram from the data list. And then we have the option here to add the files to the new plot as new overlays, And we'll press OK. And now we can see a red line and a black line, one for each overlay. I'll press undo because I do want to do a little bit more of a complex overlay here. We can actually drag and drop multiple files. Let's drag and drop samples 2 through 8 onto the histogram from my data list. So we can do that. And again, choose this second option. I'll press OK. And now we have one overlay for every single data file. And we can see all of them in our overlays category of our formatting menu. We see sample 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through 8, one overlay per file. Now, if we click on an overlay, we can change the way it looks. So if we click on our first overlay, we can fill the histogram area. We can change this fill style to maybe an etching. We can increase the transparency if we'd like. We can change the color of the overlay. So let's change this to light blue. We can also add a legend so that we know what each overlay is referring to. So in our formatting menu, we'll go to the legend category and we can make that legend visible. Now we have a legend here telling us what each of these lines is representing. Let's go to the specific options category here, and we can also stack those overlays if we prefer to look at it like that. If you need to normalize the counts, you can also do that here. You can see that any changes that we make in the formatting menu are going to be made in the plot in real time. Now I'll go to the overlays category and I'm going to remove all of those overlays except for sample 1 and 7. We can highlight whichever ones we want to remove and press that remove button. Now, because I want to keep sample 7 constant on this plot, I'm going to deselect this option, change data file during next, previous, and batch. So when I go through batch processing or when I change from file to file, only overlay 1 is going to be changing from sample 1 to a different sample, but this overlay down here will always remain on sample 7. And this is useful sometimes in your analysis to do. Let's go back to this layout page. You can also add an overlay to a plot by right-clicking on a plot and choosing Add Overlay. Now remember that you can add overlays to dot plots, density plots, and contour plots too. Let's start talking about statistics. I'm going to right-click on the CD4 versus CD8 plot. And one way we can insert statistics is by choosing the statistics option and gate statistics. Now this table is plot specific and it gives us several default statistics that you might be interested in. If we right click on this plot, we have two statistics options. We have gate statistics like we saw before, as well as a quadrant statistics because there's a quadrant on this plot. So we can select quadrant statistics and you'll notice that we have one row per gate or one row per quadrant and then all of those related statistics. If we right click on our histogram and we choose histogram statistics, we get another prefabricated default table that gives us some statistics and it will list one row per marker that is on that plot. Again, each of these tables is plot specific. For now, I don't need to be having these two tables on my layout, so I am just going to delete them. Now, if we right-click on this table, we can choose the statistics to report. I can, for example, deselect the overlay gate, and that column goes away. We can also make edits in the formatting menu. So since this object is selected, we have some different categories available here in our formatting menu. So in the statistics category, we can select and deselect the statistics to report. So we can, for example, remove the file name, and we can remove the percent of all cells if we wish. You can also change the number of decimal places that are reported. Now in the gates to display category, we can choose to display only the gates checked below. And if we want to only choose a few gates to display here, let's say we want to show just our lymphs gate as well as our CD4 and CD8 gates, we can do that here. And you can see that the changes I made were immediately applied to that table. And if I move a gate, then all those statistics are going to update automatically in real time. We can also make a custom table, and this would be useful if you want to present your results in a unique way. So we're going to go to the Insert tab at the top and choose a text box. This is a way we will insert a table, and we can click on our layout in order to add it. I'll expand this to have a bit more room. And now inside of this text box, we can right click and we have a table option to insert a table. We can identify the number of columns and the number of rows and press insert. And of course, you're free to enter some free-form text in here. So I'm going to just make a couple of labels here. So I'll enter sample ID, percentage, median, and number of events if these are some values that I want to report. And then after that, we don't recommend that you enter any values by hand, like percentages or MFI or number of events, because you can actually source them right from your layout or right from your data file. So for an example, if we want to get a sample ID keyword, let's say we want to drag and drop this whole plot right into this text box. We can do that, and we can choose to report a keyword token. So I'll press OK. And we'll press this ellipsis and we can go and search for the keyword that we want to report. In this case, I want to report SMNO, but you can report any keyword that's available. And I'll press OK. And then for a percentage, let's say we want to report the percentage in the lymphocytes gate. We can drag and drop that whole gate right into that text box, and we're able to choose which statistic we want to report. So I'm going to choose the percent of gated cells from the plot. And that is going to be the percentage of all the cells on this plot that are falling in this gate. And it is going to be for this lymphocytes gate. That's the one that I dragged over, and I'll press OK. And then that percentage is reported here. And then we could also drag a marker. So if we wanted to drag this marker over here, we can do that, and we can report for M1, we can report the median intensity for this axis. We'll press OK. And we want that to be within the CD3 gate. And then we can also finally, let's get the number of events. So if you see a value on an existing table, you can of course drag that over. So in the stats table for the number of events, we want the number of events in the lymphocytes gate. So we can drag and drop that right over here. And now we have a custom statistics table. Now I'll show you how we can use our integrated spreadsheet. Now the spreadsheet is different from the table in that you can easily add conditional formatting to the cells, and you can also generate graphs based on the columns of the spreadsheet. So we'll go to the Insert tab and choose New Spreadsheet. And we can move this, of course. And we can resize it just like the other objects in our layout. And you can see that this looks like Excel and it works like Excel too. In FCS Express, the values in the spreadsheet can be linked to your plots and your data files. We can type in some free-form text here if we want to. We can evaluate mathematical expression. So if we enter equals and 2 plus 2, we can calculate. We can also evaluate cell-based expressions. So if we have a 2 here and a 5 here, we can reference those and multiply them together. I'm going to clear these because instead of entering free-form text, I actually want to drag and drop the objects from my layout. It's more efficient to do that. So we can drag and drop a stat from our gate statistics table if we want to. So we can drag and drop this number of lymphocytes into this cell. We can drag and drop an entire plot here. I'm going to choose a keyword this time. And again, let's choose the SMNO sample specimen label keyword. I'll press OK. And we can also drag and drop a gate. So I'll drag and drop this lymphocytes gate into this cell, and we can choose a statistic. So we'll get the percent of gated cells here and press OK. Any statistics are defined by the plot origin, the overlay, the gate or marker or quad, and the statistic. I'm going to add a new page here. And I'm going to insert a new spreadsheet. And in this case, I'm going to, instead of just displaying some statistics from one data file, I can actually display statistics for multiple data files. So I am going to drag all of the files from the data list into A1. And first, let's choose a couple of keywords. So I'll press OK here. And I'm going to choose the file name, and I'll hold down my control button, and I can select another keyword as well. So both of those get added here. We can, of course, wrap the text here. So if I highlight that top row, we can go to the Layout tab here, and we can choose to wrap the text. And then we want to probably add some statistics here. So let's drag and drop those files again over into C1 this time. And I'm going to choose the statistic token. Now in this case, I would like to get statistics for my lymphocytes gate, and I want to report my number of events. We can hold down our control button to multiple select statistics here. We want the percent of parent, the median, the arithmetic mean, and the standard deviation. And I do need to select a parameter in this case to report those statistics. So I'm going to choose the CD45 parameter, and I'll press OK. And then we add on all of those columns here. Now our spreadsheet is populated, and these values are linked to our layout. So if we go to our View tab here, we can actually show multiple pages side by side. So what you'll notice here is when I move my lymphocytes gate, all of those values in the spreadsheet are going to update automatically. Now that will apply here if you are dragging and dropping all of your data files or multiple data files here, but also if you are only dragging one data file, or if you're referencing, if you've dragged a plot or if you've dragged a gate, just like on this page in this spreadsheet, those also will update automatically as you move your gate. So now we'll go back and just view one page. I can also make a custom statistic. So in this cell, I can type in ratio. And I am going to do some division here. So I'll enter equals, and I'm going to divide this cell by this cell and press enter. And now that calculation has been done, we can, just like in Excel, we can drag this calculated value down that column, and it applies to every row here. If we double click on here, you'll notice that this is applying the same formula to this last row. And we can also add a formula like in Excel. So in our Formulas tab at the top, you'll have access to many different types of formulas: statistical formulas, math and trig formulas, and logistical formulas, just to name a few. We can also add a formula by typing it into the spreadsheet. So in this cell, I'm going to press enter, and you'll notice that as I start typing in average, then the options of different formulas appear. And it also gives us a description of how we can use that particular formula. So I'm going to click on average, and then I can select all of these cells here to calculate an average of them, just like you would in Excel. Now, one thing I'd like to note is you also have some formatting options here for this spreadsheet. So since this spreadsheet is selected, we have a spreadsheet data category here. And there is one option here, use text in first row as parameter labels. Now I do want to have this checkmarked. It is checkmarked by default in order for us to make a bar chart. And I'm going to make a bar chart and I want all of those labels that are at the top to be used as my parameter labels. So this is why we have this checkmarked. So let's insert our bar chart. I'm going to go to my Insert tab and I'm going to choose Bar Chart and I'll click anywhere on my layout to add it. And one thing I'd like to do is clarify the labels here on the x-axis. We're not seeing one for every single bar, but I would like to. So I'm going to change the angle of those labels. And we can do that in our formatting menu. So I'm going to go to under my axes category. I'm going to choose the x-axis to customize. And then at the bottom, we have a labels option. We can change the angle to 90 degrees, and this allows us to see the label for every bar. Now the axis parameters can be changed. These are coming from the column labels of the spreadsheet. So if we click on that x-axis parameter, we'll see all of the columns that we have in our spreadsheet. And we can of course select one from the drop-down menu. I do want to change this y-axis to display the median, and you'll notice that those bars updated automatically to reflect a different column in our spreadsheet. We can also control this in the formatting menu. So if we go to our overlays category here, for this overlay, we have bar labels and bar values. This would correspond to our x-axis parameter and our y-axis parameter. We also have error bar parameters that we can set. So by default, we're not showing any error bars, but we can of course change that to another column in our spreadsheet. So we did have a standard deviation column included in our spreadsheet, so we can select that, and you'll now see that there are some error bars added to our bar chart. Now we can of course do a lot of formatting changes to our bar chart. One thing we can do is change the bar shape. We can add a gradient, so we can change the color. And we also can change those error bars. So if we select the error bar under the lines here, we can go ahead and change that color. And one thing I want to show you is how even all of this is going to update in real time. So let's go to our View tab and go to 2 pages vertical. And now what happens when we move our lymphocytes plot? Well, all of our bars are going to update automatically in real time. So this will allow you to update your whole analysis, your gating strategy, and that downstream analysis and downstream reporting is also going to update in real time. Let's switch back to just showing one page now. All right, another thing that I'd like to add in here is a regression plot. So let's go to the Insert tab, and I'm going to go to the Other category here, and we have an option for Scatter with Regression. And we can, of course, click on our layout to add that. And let's change those axes. Again, these values are coming from our spreadsheet. So we can change our x-axis to the median and our y-axis to arithmetic mean. And now we have this regression line. We can, of course, customize this. In our formatting menu now, we have a regression fit category for this particular plot. Now we have a linear regression shown here, but we can also add an additional regression if we'd like. So we'll press add here and we can change that regression type. You can see we have many options here. Let's change this to this type. And let's show this updating in real time. So I'll again go to view, and as we change our lymphocytes gate position, we should be seeing those regressions updating automatically in real time. All right. Now, in order to move on to batch processing, we do need to delete the spreadsheet and the charts that are associated with all of our data files. So if you remember, what I did was I dragged and dropped all 8 of these files into this spreadsheet. So right now we are currently displaying on our layout all 8 files, but this is not going to be conducive to batch processing. The batch processing is going to mean that we are displaying only one data file at a time, and we will be batching through them to apply that same layout, same analysis strategy for every data file. So what do I need to do here? I am just going to delete this spreadsheet, and I'm going to delete those 2 objects. And now you'll notice that all of our iterations are blue. None of them are grayed out, and this allows us to do batch processing through all 8 samples. Okay, let's check out our agenda, see where we are. So we've gone through part 1, part 2, and now we're going to go on to part 3, which is running a batch process to export to PowerPoint and Excel. So we'll go back to our first layout page. Now, batch processing is applying one analysis strategy to multiple data files consecutively. And before setting up a batch export, it's important to understand iterations in FCS Express. Right now, I have one data file assigned to each iteration. I can, however, assign multiple files to an iteration in our panels function. So I'm going to go to the Data tab and show our panels function here. And if we check mark this one that I had previously set up, you'll notice that now we have 2 data files assigned to each iteration. And this allows you to display multiple files in your layout at once and still be able to run batch processing. Now, when you run batch actions, iteration by iteration, the data are displayed in your layout and a piece of your document is exported. The benefit of batch processing is that we only have to set up the layout pages for one iteration. It's an efficient way to export results for multiple data files at once. I'm going to undo because I only want to have one file assigned to each iteration today. So I am not having a panel assigned or applied at the moment. Batch processing consists of 3 steps. 1, creating an analysis template. 2, deciding the kind of reports that you want to generate. And 3, selecting your data and running it through the batch actions. We've already made our analysis template. In the future, you can use an analysis template from a saved layout file. Now we can move on to step 2. We'll define batch actions by the reports that we want to export. I'm going to go to the Batch tab and choose Batch Actions. Now we can add actions, we can add folders, we can add reports, and after adding a report, we can add items like keywords and statistics to the reports. You can add those down here in one way. I'm going to click Save to PowerPoint. And here I'm only going to choose to export pages 3 and 6. You can choose whichever pages you'd like to export. We also have iteration options down here. We have append options. You can append to an existing file. The iteration options, I'm going to end up exporting one slide, one set of slides per data file in my data list, but you can alternatively export multiple presentations separately, one presentation for every data file. Now, since we are saving to a new file, I do need to click this yellow file folder icon and tell FCS Express where I'm going to be saving this. And we have to give it a name. So I'm just going to call this PowerPoint 1 and press save. And one other option that we have here is to open the presentation after saving. So this saves you a little bit of time. You don't have to go back in and search for the presentation. It will open right after saving. So I'll press OK, and now that PowerPoint is all set up. And if I don't want to run an action in this session, I can always uncheck the checkbox, and that action will stay here saved, but it won't run when we run the batch processing. But for now, I do want this to be check marked. Now, the other report that I want to export here is to Excel. So I'm going to choose the export to Excel column mode. This will export one row per data file and one column per statistic. So we have a couple of options here, but I'm going to choose to save to a new file. You can append to an existing file if you prefer. So I'm going to have to click this file folder icon to tell FCS Express where to save it and what to call it. So I'm going to call this XL1 and press save. And again, we can open that file after saving, and I'll press OK. Now, we do need to add statistics to our Excel action in order to export our statistics. And we can do that by these buttons down here, but we can also simply drag and drop objects from our layout right onto this Excel action. So let's drag and drop a plot onto this action. So we'll drag and drop this plot, and we can choose a keyword, for example. So I'll press OK and go and get my keyword that I want to report. And every keyword or every statistic that we add here is going to be reported in its own column in the Excel report. We can also drag and drop a gate. So I'll drag and drop this lymphs gate onto this action, and I'll choose the number of events for that gate. And let's drag and drop some statistics from this pre-made statistics table. So for my CD8 and CD4, let's get our percent of gated. We can highlight both of those at once and drag and drop them onto here. Okay, one other thing that we want to export is some pictures of our plots. So we can choose Save as Picture, and we can tell FCS Express where to save it. I'm just going to call this plot, and I'm saving it here in this file. So I'll press save. And then what we can do here and what we need to do here is, because we're doing batch processing, we're going to be exporting one picture per data file. Since we're doing that, then every time we export a picture, this is going to get overwritten. So we do need to include a unique file name for every data file. And the way that we'll do this is by including a token. Now I'm going to click this T to extract the metadata from our data file or our layout to uniquely name the output files. So I'll click on that T and choose under batch processing. I'm going to choose the current batch iteration, and that's going to name all of my pictures 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Next, we can choose our format. So we have several different image formats to choose from, and then we can choose if we are exporting a picture of a plot or a text box or of our full page of our layout. And since I'm exporting a plot, I do need to find the plot that I want to export, and I want to export this plot here. It gives you a little preview. So I'm going to press OK. And now all of my batch actions are set up here. And if you save a template, you save your layout as a template, all these batch actions are also going to be saved here. So you don't have to recreate this every time you want to do an export. So now when we are ready to export, we're going to go on to step 3. I have to select my the iteration that I want to start with. So in FCS Express, any files in the data list below the selected iteration will be run through batch processing. And if you can delete the ones that you don't want to process, you can add in others, you can move the ones that you want to process down to the bottom of the list, and you can start with a different iteration if you don't want to process the first few iterations. You can also move iterations or files up and down in this data list by using the up and down arrow buttons here. But for today, I do want to process all 8 of my samples in the data list. I want to export my batch actions for all of them. So I'm going to start with iteration 1, make sure that that's selected. So I will press now my run button. And you'll see it's going file by file and exporting all of our actions, all of our reports. So we have our PowerPoint file, and what it exported was the 2 pages that I indicated, page 3 and page 6. So this is showing, these 2 are showing sample 1, and then it goes on to show those 2 same pages, but displaying sample 2 instead, and then sample 3, and so on. And each of these objects that's been exported on the PowerPoint slide can be moved around and resized. We also have an Excel worksheet that has been exported. Of course, we can wrap this text, and you'll see that we have one row per data file and we have one column per statistic that we wanted to export. And we also have our images that got exported. So we have the plot 1, plot 2, etc. And so if we double click on that, we'll be able to view our individual images that we had exported. Excellent. So basically every day you will just have to, if you're doing the same analysis strategy and the same report exporting, you load your layout, you load the data files that you want to process into the data list, and you can press run, and then it's as quick as that. So let's go back to our agenda. We've gone over batch processing, and now I can just quickly show you how we can reuse our layout as a template. So we can go to the File tab and choose Save As. Now when we save a layout, then we have several options. We can choose to save it with linked data. With this option, the location of the files in the data list is saved, and when you open the layout again, FCS Express will load the files in if they are in the same location. With embedded data, the layout is saved in the same way as the linked type, but any data that is currently displayed will be embedded in the file. And with the unlinked data, the layout will not remember any of the data files in the data list, and this is good for a template. I'm going to save this as with unlinked data to show you how this is done. So we'll save this, and then I'm going to close the layout. And I have my startup screen here. Our recently opened files are going to be displayed here, so we can simply click on this to open it back up. This is the one that we just saved. And what you'll notice is in the data list, there are no data files. So what do we do to get this to populate our plots and our tables and such? We can go to the plus sign here, load in our data files once more, or it could be new data files, it could be the same data files as before. Select one and choose change data on all plots, and then all of our plots and spreadsheets are going to be populated. Okay, finally, I want to just show you a little bit of support and resources that are available. So firstly, if you don't have a FCS Express license currently, you are free to download our free trial. It's a 30-day free trial, fully functional, it has everything unlocked. So you can download that from our website, which is denovosoftware.com. Now, we also have a support page. So if you wanted to get to our startup screen from within the layout here, then you can of course go to the View tab and choose Startup Screen. That's how you would open this up. We have a lot of resources available here. But on our website, denovosoftware.com, we also have a resources page. So that has we have a knowledge base, we have a manual that's searchable, we have a lot of video resources. You'll be able to see previously recorded webinars and tutorials, and we also have step-by-step tutorials that are available with some sample data that you can use to run through and learn how to use a lot of tools and functions in FCS Express. We also have a YouTube channel where you'll be able to search for a lot of the videos that we have available. And finally, if you ever want to get in touch with us, then you can email us at support@denovosoftware.com. Now, I want to thank you for joining us for the webinar today, and I am happy to take any remaining questions that you have at this time. Okay, I see there's one remaining question here that hasn't been answered. Are there any differences between the Mac and PC version of the software, and are they compatible? Great question. There really aren't any differences between the Mac and PC version of the software, and they are compatible. So if you save a layout in from a PC, then you can actually open that up on the Mac version and vice versa. I hope that answers your question. Awesome. And it looks like all of the other questions have already previously been answered. Thank you, Greg, for handling those.
No problem.
All right, I'll just stay on the line for another minute in case there are other questions, but everyone else, thank you very much for joining us today and have a great day. Again, this has been recorded, so you should get a link in an email shortly or within the next few days to review this webinar. Okay, it doesn't look like there are any other questions. If at any time you have a question for us, please feel free to reach out to us at support@denovosoftware.com, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Bye, everyone.